Quantum computing isn't science fiction anymore, it's a multi-billion-dollar race, and the winners could reshape industries and investors' portfolios. But if you're still fuzzy on what quantum computing actually does, or which companies are turning hype into breakthroughs, this video right here is your shortcut. I'll break down the tech in plain terms and reveal 5 stocks making real moves before the rest of the market catches on. So let's start with the basics to make sure that you actually understand what quantum computing is, because honestly, I thought I did, but my own definition was a little bit messed up. So let's make sure you're not making the same mistake. So quantum computing is a whole new way of processing information that could make today's fast computers look like dial-up internet. Instead of using regular bits, which are ones and zeros, quantum computers use qubits, which can be both a 1 and a 0 at the same time.
Hey Ron, let me try to help here. Think of a regular bit like a light switch that's either on or off. A qubit is like a dimmer switch that can be both on and off, and everything in between at the same time.
Yeah, thanks, Tiara. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but it's actually a huge deal. Pair that with another ability that's called entanglement, and quantum computers can solve problems way faster than anything that we have right now. So how fast, you may be wondering? Well, in December of 2024, Google's quantum AI team introduced Willow, a 105 qubit superconducting quantum processor. This chip performed a computation in under 5 minutes that would take today's fastest supercomputers an estimated 10 septillion years to solve, which is a time frame that exceeds the age of the universe. Maybe pause the video here for a second and think about that. Google solved a computing problem in 5 minutes that would take a classical computer more time than the history of the universe. So why should you care as an investor? Well, because quantum computers are expected to absolutely revolutionize industries like finance, cybersecurity, and drug discovery. And if you want to keep learning about investment ideas that could completely reshape markets before they are the biggest investment trend, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out, as I always try to cover them. Now back to what I was saying here. Not only is quantum computing supposed to change industries, but it's already worth over $2 billion in 2025. And some experts predict it could reach $72 billion by 2035. Major companies like Google, IBM, Microsoft, they're investing heavily, and governments worldwide have committed over $42 billion to quantum research alone. So yeah, as an investor, it is now time to start looking into this inevitable longer-term trend. So next, let's get into the real players in quantum computing and dig a little bit deeper into what they've actually accomplished and invested so far. First, we have DWave Quantum. So DWave is one of the few pure-play quantum companies, and they're making headlines for real-world progress. In Q1 of 2025, DWave's revenue soared 509% year over year to $15 million. Thanks to a major sale to one of Germany's supercomputing centers. They also reported a record cash reserve of $304 million, which should support them until they hit profitability. DWave's R&D is spending, very aggressively, with $35 million invested in 2024 alone. Now, what really sets DWave apart is their scientific achievement. So in March of 2025, they published a peer-reviewed paper showing that their quantum computer solved a real-world materials simulation problem in 20 minutes. That's a task that would take a classic supercomputer nearly 1 million years and, more energy than the world uses in a year, which is crazy. So this is the first time that quantum supremacy has been orchestrated on a practical problem, not just a theoretical one. Number 2, which you should probably expect, is Alphabet or Google. Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, is a heavyweight in the quantum space. In late 2024, their quantum division announced a breakthrough chip that outperformed classic supercomputers on complex problems, we already just talked about it, which marked a major leap toward quantum supremacy. While practical everyday quantum computers are still 5 to 10 years away, Google has already invested billions of dollars into R&D and is working closely with governments and universities to push the entire field forward. Alphabet's strategy is about more than just research. They're targeting real-world applications. And that Willow chip that we talked about earlier that was launched in 2024, that's at the heart of the push and has helped spark a surge of investment interest in the entire sector. And while quantum is only a small part of Alphabet's massive business, its forward-thinking investments could pay off big in the long run if they're the first to commercialize this technology. Next one is Ionic, which is another pure play quantum company. And they're making big moves both technologically and commercially. So in Q1 2025, they reported $7.6 million in revenue and nearly $700 million in cash on hand. They expect to bring in $75 to $95 million for the full year, with major deals like a $22 million contract to set up the first commercial quantum computing and networking hub in partnership with EPB. Ionic has also been on an acquisition spree, buying other companies to strengthen their position in quantum networking.
IonQ's price swings are like early Tesla, massive moves with every earnings call. That's normal for frontier tech.
Yes, thank you, Tiara. So anytime a company gets compared to Tesla, that just shows how disruptive they could be. Now, technologically, Ionic systems, they have demonstrated a 12% speed improvement over classical computers in real-world simulations. And they're also expanding globally with new partnerships in both Japan and Europe, and they're involved in DARPA's Quantum Benchmarking Initiative. Now, next we have Microsoft, and Microsoft is taking a different approach. They are betting big on a new kind of qubit called the topological qubit. And their chip, which was introduced in 2025, is the world's first quantum chip that's powered by this architecture, which could allow quantum computers to scale up to 1 million qubits on a single chip, which is pretty crazy. Microsoft's quantum division has been running for 19 years, believe it or not, making it the company's longest running R&D initiative. Now, they've poured billions of dollars into research, and their Azure quantum platform lets businesses and researchers experiment with quantum computing via the cloud. Microsoft's recent partnership with Atom Computing led to the successful entanglement of 24 logical qubits, which was a significant technical milestone. Plus, Microsoft was recently selected by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, for continued funding to develop a utility-scale quantum computer, reflecting the US government's confidence in their approach. Now, with all this momentum, Microsoft isn't just talking about the future, they're actively building it. And then we have IBM, and that is one of the oldest names in quantum, and they're still pushing boundaries. So in 2025, IBM announced a $150 billion investment in US tech over 5 years, with over $30 billion earmarked for mainframe and quantum computing systems. IBM has already generated over $1 billion in revenue from quantum technology, making them the most commercially successful player so far. Their Condor processor, which was unveiled in 2024, shattered records with 1,121 superconducting qubits, and their Quantum System 2 is designed to scale quantum computing for the next decade. They also have a massive open source following, and the company continues to land government and enterprise contracts, which is huge. Now, in my eyes, they're playing the long game, right? They're combining steady innovation with a strong business foundation, and the revenue is following. Now, each of these companies is making real measurable progress in quantum computing, whether it's through billion-dollar investments or scientific breakthroughs or even commercial deals, right? They're not just talking about the future here. They're actively building it, and that's what makes them the top stocks to watch in this space. All right, so now that you know the big players and what they're actually accomplishing, right? Let's talk about the reality check, which is important. So don't just leave the video now, you need to hear this. Quantum computing is one of the most exciting frontiers in tech right now, but it also is one of the riskiest places to put your money. And here's what you need to keep in mind before you hit buy on any of the stocks that I just talked about. So first, the tech is still early. So even though companies like Google and IBM, they've made headlines with some crazy quantum supremacy claims, we're still years away from true quantum computing being used for everyday business problems. Most experts agree that practical error-corrected quantum computers are at least 5 to 10 years away. So that means that a lot of the current excitement around this whole industry, it's really based on future potential, but definitely not current profits. Next is that there's going to be high volatility and speculation, right? So quantum stocks, they are a roller coaster. So for example, Ionic's share price dropped 26% year to date in 2025, even as the revenue had doubled. So smaller pure play companies like DWave and Rigetti, which is another one, are especially volatile with wild swings after earnings reports or scientific announcements. If you're going to invest, be ready for some ups and downs in this industry because right now, a lot of it is speculative. Also, there's big tech versus pure plays. So investing in a giant like Alphabet or Microsoft, it gives you stability, right? But quantum is only a tiny part of their business. If quantum really takes off, it'll be a nice boost, but it probably won't move the needle overnight, right? On the flip side, pure play companies like DWave and Ionic, they are all in on quantum. And so their stocks, they could skyrocket if they hit a breakthrough, but they could also crash if the tech takes longer than expected or if their funding dries up. So invest carefully because right now, these are some risky ones for sure. And also funding and cash burn. So quantum R&D is very expensive. DWave, for example, spent $35 million on research and development in 2024 alone. And while some companies have strong cash reserves, right? Like Ionic has nearly 700 million on hand, others, they could face dilution or even bankruptcy if they can't keep raising money. So always check a company's balance sheet before actually investing in anything. And then we have government and industry support, right? So a lot of quantum progress is being fueled by government grants and industry partnerships. Okay, so the US government alone, they have committed billions of dollars to quantum research, and companies like IBM and Microsoft, they're landing major contracts with agencies like DARPA. Okay, this support can help keep the lights on while this technology really matures, but it's not a guarantee of commercial success by any means. And then there's the hype versus reality, right? So there's a lot of noise in the quantum space if you pay attention to it. Some companies have quantum in their name, but little to show in terms of real tech or revenue. So always look for actual accomplishments like, published research or commercial deals or working prototypes before you invest. Don't get swept up in, all the hype and, just look on X and say, this is the one. Remember that being good at quantum is one thing, but in order to really succeed, these companies, they need to combine quantum and business for revenue.
If you need a historical comparison, think back to the early 2000s .com bubble.
Exactly. I'd agree with TR here. Tons of internet companies promised the moon, but only a few like Amazon and Google really survived and thrived, right? The same could happen in quantum computing. There could be a handful of winners and a ton of companies that completely fade away. And because of all this uncertainty, it's really smart to spread your bets out, okay? Consider mixing stable tech giants with a couple of pure play quantum stocks if you really want to get exposure to the sector. And as always, never invest more than you're willing to lose in a high risk, high reward area like this whatsoever because it could end up bad for you. Could end up good, but could end up bad too. Now, I have to say, if you're into breakthrough tech like quantum computing, right, you'll probably geek out over another video that I did where I asked AI to predict where Bitcoin's price is going for the next 50 years. And let's just say it did not hold back. So click right up here to see what AI said. And I'll warn you before you do, it's probably much higher than you'd actually guess.